that video, and then I would ask people, what did you guys see? What were some words that stood out, or what kind of motivational strategy was this coach using?
Well, he definitely had an emphasis. The last thing he says is winning is everything. It's how you're being judged, and that message comes through pretty clear.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think he was, it seemed to be a college coach, and I think he was dead on for college.
Okay. So tell me more about that. Why do you think that?
Well, I think, you know, college coaches get paid to win. So he's going to emphasize that winning because that's how he gets paid.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, that's a really astute point. I think there are differences in what we focus on at different levels, and certainly at the collegiate and professional level. We tend to focus, the bottom line tends to be winning. So we really want to illustrate that as something that we want to talk about, and we want to talk about how to teach life lessons. We're saying, yes, you can talk about winning and you can focus on that, but you can also be talking about character development. As Joel was saying earlier, he had a coach in college who was able to do both. So we call this a scoreboard coach, someone who's focused only on the scoreboard. You know, it doesn't matter what else gets in the way, scoreboard is the most important. So on this next slide, there's a question that asks, which Olympians earn more medal? The ones that are focused on their results, or the ones that are focused on mastering their technique? So what do you guys think? What would be your guess? You can just go ahead and shout it out. Would it be people focused on results or people focused on mastery?
Both.
Mastery.
Both. Mastery. Okay, good.
I know what the right answer is to say, but I know both. I would say both. You focus on mastery because you're going to win. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Right. Okay, great. So you guys gave us the answer, which is that they do focus on both, or they have both in mind. The larger goal is the result, but in order to get there, they're focused on mastery. They're focused on the process and the tiny little goals that it takes to get there. So the last video we looked at a scoreboard coach. This next video we're going to look at is what we call a mastery coach. So this is a video clip from a movie, and the coach is talking about character and much more beyond the results. And he's motivated in his players. So some of the stuff that he talks about is what we talk about in the Elm Tree of Mastery. So now I'm going to really dig into that and help you think through all of those, the concepts that are within the Elm Tree of Mastery. We talked earlier today, if we had done the full workshop, we would have talked earlier today about a culture called the win at all costs culture, mentality. And really that's the default. We live in a society where you know, everything around us, everything on TV is pointing to winning and talks about winning and kind of the bottom line. And so it's our job as coaches to really introduce all of these other elements and help our players and parents and the officials even to make sure that we're approaching sports as more than just about winning. So up here on the slide you can see, I just want to kind of really point out the differences between the scoreboard and mastery coach. The scoreboard coach is focused only on results, whereas the mastery coach is focused on effort. So how hard you're trying. The scoreboard coach is focused on comparing yourself to others, whether it's on your team or a team against another team. And a mastery coach is focused on learning and improvement. And then finally, a scoreboard coach is focused on mistakes are not okay. You cannot make a mistake. It's kind of a climate of fear. Whereas a mastery coach says, oh my gosh, yes, bring the mistakes on. That's all part of the learning process. So one analogy that I like to use, just to sort of give you another angle to approach it, is I want you to pretend that you're a greyhound at the racetrack. Okay? So you're on the racetrack, and if you are a scoreboard-focused greyhound, you see this rabbit, and that's the only thing that you want. Rabbit, rabbit, rabbit. You can't get your mind off the rabbit. The problem is, if there's a hole in your way, you might stumble along the way, you know, as you go around the track. Or it might start raining and it gets slippery and you don't notice because you're so focused on the rabbit. Or perhaps you run into another greyhound because you're just, again, you're only focused on the rabbit. So at the end of the race, you face plant into a huge puddle and you don't even finish the race. And you feel like a failure because you did not reach that rabbit. On the other hand, if you're a mastery-focused greyhound, you know that you need to practice all those pieces along the way. So you practice in the rain, You practice with other aggressive greyhounds. You practice with dips and holes in the ground. And ultimately, you're going to be the one who reaches the rabbit because you practice all of those scenarios, all of those challenges that could get in your way. Okay, so now we're going to break down our elm tree of mastery. And chapter 4 in your book goes into greater detail, but I'd like to sort of give you a few examples so we can kind of talk about that and engage with it here. So the first piece of the mastery definition is effort. So one way that we like to think about teaching effort is to help our athletes teach effort goals. So that sounds sort of obvious or intuitive, but it actually can be pretty tricky, and it's really particular to each sport. So I'm going to give you a few examples of possible goals that you could set, and I'm going to ask you whether you think it's an outcome goal or an effort goal. So if I said to you as an athlete that I want you to get every single rebound in a basketball game, who here thinks that's an outcome goal? Okay, and who here thinks that's an effort goal? Okay.
Well,
So it is, we're going to call that an outcome goal because it's focused only on one single result, and you don't necessarily as an athlete have control over that. It doesn't necessarily tell you what kind of effort to give. Versus an effort goal might be something like, I want you to sprint after every 50-50 ball. That's something that as an athlete, I know that I can control how much effort I'm giving, and I'm going to get there. It doesn't mean I'm going to get to every ball, but it means that I'm giving an effort every single time. Next is learning. So this, for us, really goes back to the magic ratio, or I guess we're going to touch on that next with the filling the emotional tank. But we talk a little bit more about feedback in our next principle, but I think the learning piece, one essential element of that is giving really specific feedback and really focusing, obviously, on an individual player's improvement. And in order to do that, you need to know your players really well. So I think really engaging your assistant coaches and injured athletes and captains in getting to know your players such that you can find that next little level of goal to help them improve. And it's also the kind of feedback that you're giving. It's not being generic, but it's being really specific. So for example, if I were a basketball player and I took a shot and it went in, instead of saying good shot, what might be an example of specific feedback you might give me if let's say I had good technique? Anyone have an idea?
Way to snap your wrist at the end.
Okay, yeah, so you said way to snap your wrist at the end. Yeah, exactly. So being really specific. And then also, I really believe in asking questions. I think engaging athletes in thinking about themselves as coaches and them capable of teaching the game to other people. So you might even say to me, you know, why do you think that went in? Like, what went well? What did you do well? And so it makes me kind of go back and think about the kind of feedback you've given me in the past. Finally, mistakes are okay. So to really create a culture where mistakes are not only okay, but like embraced, that's hard to do. That's really hard to do because it's pretty ingrained throughout life that, you know, we're always trying to do our best and we don't want to make mistakes, and it's a self-conscious moment. So one thing I'm going to ask you guys to do is everyone to stand up. And so pretend that you're a coach who does not accept mistakes. Okay, you're a more negative coach, and I'm up to bat. It's the final inning and the final out, and I've fouled out. I've totally, you know, muffed it for the team. If you were a coach who doesn't accept mistakes, what might be your body language? Go ahead, everyone do it. Don't look at each other. Go ahead and do it. Okay. Okay, great. Now stay standing. Corey turned his back. Okay, now if you were a coach who says, okay, mistakes are okay, and you want to just really reinforce that for your players, and everyone's watching you, what might you do instead, just physically?
Okay, that's okay.
Walk up to the athlete and give them a hug. A little clap. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, keep your head up.
Great. Yeah, give us some positive feedback. Excellent. Okay, thanks. You guys can sit down. Okay, so that was just, I gave you guys kind of a quick synopsis of each of those principles. And like I said, Chapter 4 really delves into it in greater detail and gives you a bunch of tools to help you think through the elm tree. So the next slide talks about, or I should say at the bottom of that slide, in a mastery climate, so what we're trying to create, we have learned that anxiety decreases and confidence increases. And I'd like you to turn to your partner, so go ahead and partner up with the person you were with. And I want you guys to just talk for a minute about why would that be? Why in a mastery climate would anxiety go down and confidence go up? So go ahead and turn to your partner.
Anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, it's awkward. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'd love to hear from a couple of you. What were some things that you touched on? Why does mastery? Why does it focus on mastery decreasing anxiety?
Control.
Yeah.
You're able to control the mastery. When you're not able to control something, it's anxiety produced.
Mm-hmm.
You can't control, like if you have a great at bat, you can't control what you're supposed to, you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
But the stuff that you can feel like you can control, it's versus you can't control.
Yeah.
Anxiety. I'm a control freak.
Great. Yeah. So we have a slide that talks or highlights the point of control. So you guys said it exactly. You nailed it. And there's some research out of Stanford University. Albert Bender is a psychologist who studied motivation, and he really did find that people are going to feel more confident and people who feel more confident and more competent are going to stick to something longer and stay with it. And so not only are you giving players a sense of control and a sense of sort of both a direction to move in, but kind of all those steps along the way, but you're also going to lead them to stay with what they're doing for a lot longer. They're going to be less likely to give up. So finally, we're going to wrap up the principle by talking about a scenario. We'll read it together, and then I'm going to split you into small groups, and I'd like you to discuss, keeping those principles all in mind. We're going to discuss the scenario and how you might respond as a double role coach. But we're going to stop now.
Okay, so slides. So let's give Karen some feedback. And I know everyone here's seen the workshop except for Corey. Corey's never seen a workshop. No, but Karen is somebody who would be doing coaching workshops, right? That's what she's been learning is Double Goal Coach 1. So let's just give her some feedback on what we saw. Kelly or Ruben, do you guys want to go first, or do you want to wait?
Well, how about if one of us goes first briefly, just to kind of set the tone for the type of feedback that is helpful for Keren. Kelly, do you want to go now, or do you want me to go?
Sure, I'll go. I don't mind. You can wrap it up, Ruben, at the end. Keren, loved seeing you in front of people. I think you came alive. You really did. You were smiling. You were energetic. You were really feeding off the audience, and that's what we wanted to see. So that was much better. That was great. And I think it was challenging because you didn't have the slides there in front of you. So I know you wouldn't do this in a real workshop, but one of the things I just want to caution you is make sure that you're not reading off the slides. Even using the terminology, like, and this slide asks, instead of saying this slide asks, I want you to ask. Okay. And then the slide can support. But I thought that was great. I loved the way your terminology, when you said board coaches, a climate of fear versus a mastery coach that would say, bring on mistakes. I love that because you made it real. It was very quick, very simple, and that wasn't terminology that's necessarily in the book, and you made it your own, and I really like the way you said that. Outcome goals versus effort goals, I love that as an activity because, again, it makes it real for the coaches, and it lets them think about what goals do they set and how do they make them real. The only other thing that I would add to outcome goals one of the things that I say is, can everyone do it?
Okay.
Yes, that has to be in your control, but if everyone on your team can do it, then, I'm sorry, if everyone cannot do it, it's an outcome goal. An effort goal, every single person can do. The only other caution there is you used a great basketball example as an outcome goal of everybody getting the rebound. And then when you gave an effort goal example, you switched it. You switched the sport to like running for every loose ball. So I would just say if you're going to use an example of basketball as an outcome goal, rebounding, for the effort goal, I would keep it the same. And I would say maybe boxing out and everyone box out. That's an effort goal. So that was just a little tiny thing. I thought you did a fantastic job.
Thanks.
Yep.
So I'll go. My favorite, well, I'll start with I'll work backwards. So I love the Stanford research tie-in. I think that anything we can do to highlight the research-based portion of the workshop, I think really gives us more credibility. So I really enjoyed that. I noted that you were extremely comfortable in front of a group. I didn't feel like you were nervous at all, which I think is really important. I also liked that when you were talking, you made a point to bring Joel's example back in. So you continued that engagement of, taking someone who's a participant and making it be a part of the presentation. I did note I would like maybe one or two more personal examples or stories from you.
Okay.
I really liked the how do you want to be remembered exercise. Take 30 seconds to write down how do you want to be remembered. I thought you did a great job at beginning with the quick, easy engagement of the raise your hand. I think, I'm really big on the engagement piece, so I love that you did that. Two notes that I had were books. Not everyone they might not have a book.
Okay.
For the most part, most people have a book, but it's not always the case. And we would tell you that going in with your note.
Okay.
And then lastly, I suffered from this as well, but we can't say the PCA. It has to be PCA.
Oh.
There's no the. So I did that a lot as well. I thought you did.
Oh, that's interesting.
I thought you did great.
Thanks.
Yeah. So that's my feedback.
Thank you.
I loved how interactive you were, Karen. It made it fun.
Okay, good.
And I agree that you were really good at responding to people and then using that in effective ways. I would encourage you to use your background. My memory is that you have a background from Carleton.
I'm coaching there, yeah.
Yeah, coaching there. So did you talk about that today?
No.
Do that. I think that that's
more personal.
This stories. Impressive.
Okay.
So I would use that. And then I have another. When you talked about page one, I wasn't sure what you meant by page one.
Okay.
There's a page one, and then, page one is actually table of contents.
Okay.
Yeah. So loved your Greyhound example. It was alive. It felt good.
Great.
Thanks.
Nice job, Karen.
You gave a lot of answers. Thank you.
And you answered the answers.
I'll reiterate that, like everyone, you're really comfortable. You'll do great. You'll do great. My experience was that you have to know the slides cold, and that's a big part of this piece because you're going to think you're advancing to the next slide when it's not quite time to advance to the next slide, and the next words come up. Like the anxiety slide.
Yeah.
The anxiety goes down.
Totally.
You'll be thinking that you're talking about control, but so just know those slides and win the sequence of things. I love that you wrote that you're required to write things down. You can, use that, for sure use that, because at the end of the whole presentation, you're going to come back and you're going to say, give me 2 or 3 things that you can take away and apply today that you learned here. And that's kind of a affirmation that they learned something, right? And the leader of the person who put that together will then affirm himself that this was worth it because my guys learned something, and therefore it's valuable. And by writing stuff down, if nobody can answer that question, which I've had, if or they'll stumble or nobody want to volunteer something, you can go back to say what they wrote down, and that's what they can take away. That's a great exercise. But nowhere in the book to write it.
Yeah.
Since I'm the only one here who's never taken a course, I've never been at the thing, and if I was at the course, a couple things that I did. I loved your eye contact, your confidence. That shows that you knew your material.
Mhm.
And you knew that what you're talking about. Like I would like to hear more about you.
Okay.
It really is. Yeah, I would like to hear more about you, more coaching. Because why am I here? Why am I going to listen to you? Why do I need to listen to you? You could be never coach. Yeah. So I would have loved to hear more about you and your personal life, and kind of how you really develop that story to kind of get you here. Almost your personal experience with coaches, and what really draws you to this.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to get kicked out of the room here. I was kind of confused in the Greyhound story.
Okay.
I had trouble with that.
Okay.
I did. I understand the concept of it, but I had trouble with it. From that, like I'm coming from athletic mind,
it didn't translate.
It didn't
for you.
resonate.
Okay.
I have 4 boys. And,
Okay.
I wish that they were like grands, so I could feed them and tell them to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of struggle with that. I would like to kind of see more of kind of almost a work personal life.
Okay.
Kind of, I don't know. I just,
Didn't work.
yeah.
Okay.
But it worked. So
Yeah.
who knows about it. But yeah, I just really did love your confidence. I loved you bringing in kind of Alex Bender in it and kind of talking about the confidence, because I really like that and kind of bringing that.
Can I ask? I'm sorry I was late. Did we establish what audience we are? Are we basketball people?
No.
Are you a basketball person?
No.
What did you?
I was trying to use different sports. I'm mostly soccer.
Okay.
Track, lacrosse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing. The more you can relate to your audience
totally.
with that type of story.
Yeah.
Oh, and that reminds me.
Yeah.
The question, he came up here and just threw a curveball at you. That was like, wow.
Can I jump in on that one?
Yeah, Ruben.
Yeah.
This is Ruben. Can I comment about that, the curveball that got thrown?
Yes.
So that's one, as a trainer, you know you've got an engaged participant when they make a comment like that. They're thinking about the material and they're applying it. Go, wait a minute, this is a college coach. Of course he has to win or else he gets. Now, on the other hand, we have to respond. We have to be present. And Keren did. She was present. She responded, and she talked about. Keren, help me remember. How did you respond to that comment?
I acknowledge that at the collegiate professional level.
Yes, you acknowledged it. You acknowledged it, which was awesome. And then you talked about how there are going to be differences whether you're coaching youth or high school or college. Okay, so you handled the question. Now I had the benefit of not having to think on my feet and respond on my feet. So I'm going, what would I have said if this part? And another approach there, Keren, is yes, absolutely. College coaches get fired when they don't win, and they want to win. So what we're going to do here is we're going to explore if this coach's approach actually does produce better performance and help his team win. Mm-hmm. And you follow me there, Keren?
Yep.
So that way you're acknowledging, and you're also, through the course of the workshop, you're going to point out that this coach is shooting himself in the foot. He wants to win, and yet he's taking an approach that actually research and experience shows doesn't lead to more winning. So I'll turn it back over to you all. I just wanted to jump in with that comment.
I have one thing to that. Sorry, because I had a thought too sitting here. I agree with Ruben. I was like, wow, that's tough, and you did a great job. And something that came to my mind right away was the example of Phil Jackson, who is the national spokesperson for Positive Coaching Alliance, and he is quoted in one of the books as saying that this even works when he was coaching the Chicago Bulls. And so a good response would be, that is absolutely right, and these professional coaches and college coaches are paid to win, and we even have someone part of our organization who believes even with that as your goal, you can still take so much from the Positive Coaching Alliance and utilize it with your athletes. It was kind of where my mind was going versus that, but I was like, oh, that's tough, that's tough.
Well, and two, it's how do you define winning? Because winning means different things to different people.
Right, yeah, that's
If it's about the scoreboard winning, versus, it's almost like in youth athletics, you try to redefine the win, and that's kind of what you're trying to do there.
Exactly.
As a youth coach, hey, well, what do you think a win is? Like, what is the win for you? What are your goals? Kind of, what are you trying to accomplish here?
Yeah.
Kind of redefining that winning.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so then even putting it to the crowd, I could have said, oh, what do the rest of you think about that? And if you had said your response, that's perfect. Yeah.
That's right. Because winning to me is different than winning to you, to you, to you, to you.
Yeah.
So what is the actual definition of winning for you?
Yeah.
It's different things to different people.
So I'll tell you why. That's happened to me 2 out of the 6. And what I did, just for consideration, is I used the intensity of that coach to talk about intensity versus tensity, right? Because you want your players to be intense of an accomplishment, but you don't want them to be gripping the bat so tight. That coach makes them really tense. And then it fosters into the whole elm tree of anxiety going down and confidence going down. I was stunned the first time I got challenged on it.
Hey, Deborah and Keren, has everybody gotten a chance to give some feedback? Can I close the feedback, because I know we have Maureen, and I also know that Keren is clearly has a teachable spirit, and she's jotting down notes and she's soaking it all in, and I think we've hit her with plenty. So is it okay if I wrap it up here? Kelly started by talking about how Keren really came to life being in front of a live group. I want to make sure, because I know Kelly didn't mean this, I want to make sure you all understand that in Keren's 2 practice sessions online, she was very good, very good. And one of the pieces of feedback we gave her is, hey, show that smile earlier in the workshop. And sure enough, she delivered today. In the first minute, in fact, I texted Kelly back and forth. She smiled and she laughed with us in the workshop. But I just want to make sure that the group understands that this is Keren's 3rd very strong performance presenting a workshop. And so congratulations, Keren.
Thanks. Thanks, you guys.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, Maureen, you're up.
All right.
And congratulations, Keren. I didn't even know you were pregnant until today.
Yeah, there are 2 in there.
Oh my gosh. I only ever see from your shoulders up. So when you stood up, I was like, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Or she's still in the basketball.
Okay, I'm going to get started. Okay, thank you, Deborah, for that really nice introduction. A couple of things that are new and that I haven't even been able to tell Deborah about. As she said, I'm a soccer and lacrosse and ice hockey coach, primarily at the youth level. I've coached girls and boys, grades, high school down to, grades 2nd and 3rd. But as I'm showing my Hamlin spirit here, I've recently been hired as an assistant women's lacrosse coach at Hamlin University. So I'm excited to be able to take the coaching to the college level as well. And I was first exposed to the Positive Coaching Alliance 3 or 4 years ago when 2 very good friends of mine, coaching colleagues, introduced it to me. The first was I went to a youth lacrosse clinic here in Minnesota. All coaches like me who coach youth lacrosse are required to attend the clinic, and we're going to learn how to teach the game. And so I was excited because a friend of mine, Ann Mulk, who's a PCA trainer, was giving that clinic. And I have to be honest, I also was like, okay, I've been playing lacrosse, I've been coaching lacrosse, I've been involved in lacrosse for 30 years. I'm just going to go and visit with Ann. I don't really need to learn how to coach the game. And so I got to the clinic and, of course, loved listening to Ann and did learn a few things about the game. What struck me more, though, was that she introduced the double goal coaching workshop as part of that coaching clinic. And I absolutely loved it. And at the time was coaching my daughter's 3rd and 4th grade lacrosse team. And I took the principles that she presented that day and actually turned around and used it right away when I had a parent meeting and my first team meeting. So it was something that surprised me in a very good way. And the second person is a very good friend of mine. His name is Jay Johnson, and he was a double goal coach award winner for Stillwater Area Hockey Association. He and I have daughters in the same grade, and we coach girls hockey and girls lacrosse together. And when I heard that he was nominated, then I heard that he won. Of course, I was thrilled for him. And what Jay did is he came back from, all that, and he gave me this book. And some of you, I see, have the book in front of you, and if you don't, I can take your name and we can try to line you up with a book. But Jay gave me the book and said, Mo, you're actually going to love it. You have to read this book. And of course, I knew a little bit about it because of Anne, so I took the book home and I read it. And I have to be honest, to this day, this book does not leave my coaching backpack. I take it with me everywhere I go when I'm coaching, and at the beginning of a new season, I look at it again just to see what, kind of reset and remind myself why I do this. So two very important people affected me that way. But what struck me the most when I read this book, which is, I guess, a little sad, is the statistic that we have over 40 million youth playing sports, okay, in our country, at the high school level right down. And the statistic is that close to 70% will drop out by the time that they are 13. And to me, I have 3 children. My oldest is a senior in high school. I've gotten to watch her play high school sports. My son is a 9th grader, and then my daughter a 5th grader. I love not only coaching them, but I love watching them play. And to think that there are kids dropping out of sports by the time they're 13 made me very sad. So I'll ask you, I really want this to be as beneficial to you as the first one was to me. Why do you think that is? Does anybody have any ideas of why would someone drop out of youth sports? Yeah.
They get burnt out. There's a lot of demand, I think, these days, and my kids aren't old enough yet, but it seems like it's like 5 practices a week, and there's just so much.
A lot of huge demand, which, what any other ideas? It's a great example.
Yelling from the stands.
Yelling from the stands, yes, yelling from the stands, which takes away what?
No longer fun.
Why do kids want to play sports? Why do we want to play sports? Deborah didn't mention this. I still play. I play hockey. I play hockey not because I'm scoring a lot of goals, but because it's fun. That's why kids play sports. So through the Double Goal Coach Workshop, what I want to do is what this book did for me, provide a common language for all of us coaches to help turn around that trend. Okay, we want to make it fun for them and make sure they keep playing long past the age of 13. So love that book. The next slide here, most of you should recognize our National Advisory Board. We have Steve Young, who is a phenomenal football player. And I'm just going to quickly play his video, which describes the impact of youth sports coaches. Play the video. Tell me what's that message? What did you hear Steve Young say? Anyone want to just shout it out?
He liked that his first coach was influential.
His first coach. That's us, right? We're all coaching, we did a survey at the beginning, we're all coaching, our sons and daughters or children, in youth sports. And what I learned yesterday was that Steve Young, obviously he had an NFL career, he was also coached by 2 Hall of Fame coaches. So he had coaches at the very highest level, yet who he talks about are the people that affected him early on in his playing career. They kept the fun there, as you said, and they made it possible for him to achieve at a high level. So to get everyone sharing some great stories, if you could turn to the person next to you or maybe the person behind you and just think about that person in your life. Steve Young talks about the first couple of coaches he had. Think about a coach that impacted you and why. You just take a minute or 2 and do that, and then we'll reconvene.
Never did it, but I moved to high school and it wasn't good. And so Nancy Andrews made it work, and I wanted to teach every day.
All right, I'm going to actually keep it really short. For that one, is there anyone that would like to share either their own story of the coach that impacted them or possibly someone that you just learned about that you think is a good story to share with the group?
Coach that stands out for me is Nancy Andrews. She was my diving coach in high school, and I was not good. And I wanted to keep coming, it was amazing. I went from swimming to diving just because my friends were doing it, and I loved it, and I really got where, I did all right.
That's fantastic. But she made you want to keep coming back.
Yeah,
and
I certainly got better.
Would you say that the fact that you wanted to keep coming back translated beyond the swimming pool? Were there lessons that she was able to teach you that affected different parts of your life?
No.
Anybody else have a story they'd like to share, either about their own coach or someone that they heard from?
Yeah, just to your point that you just made, I had a track coach in high school who really taught us about like the process of getting better and broke it down into tiny steps. So each day of practice, he had a really specific plan for us as distance athletes. And I certainly learned about sort of how to put the work in to achieve your goal. And I just really appreciated that.
That's fantastic. Both examples are really positive today, and that's what we're going to be talking about. It sounds like you both had double goal coaches, and we'll dig more into that. I always like to share the coach that impacted me the most because he's the reason why I coach. When I was 13 years old or 14 years old, I was in 9th grade, so 30 years ago, he was my first high school soccer coach. And his name was Chuck Vernon, and we called him Bruno. And he not only taught me how to play soccer and how to be a better soccer player, but he was the first person in my life that had cared about me beyond the soccer field and beside my parents. You know, he wanted me to be a good soccer player, and he did want us to win. He was very competitive, and yet he checked in with me. How are you doing in French class? What's going on at home? How are things going in your friendship group? And I just felt that he gave me so much more than just the lessons of how to play soccer. And even as a young girl, I knew that was special. I knew that he was someone that made a difference early on in my life and has continued to. He's met all my 3 kids. He knows my husband. And when I go back to Connecticut, where I went to high school, I call him up. I actually have his home number still committed to memory this many years later. And I said to him in high school, thank you notes, but I just felt like I don't know how I used to be modest and humble. And he said, Maureen, what you can do is to do for someone else what I've done for you. I coach the people that you're thanking now and do that for other kids. That's the best thing. That's the best gift you can give to me. And so throughout my career, and I've always been a coach, but I've pursued other careers outside of coaching as well, and I've always thought of him. He coach, how would he treat me? Clearly, I can say he absolutely was a double goal coach. So the next couple slides, you look at real quick because this that is, Jim Thompson in 1998. And we have chapters all across the country now, up to 13. Workshops are done all across the country as well, so that people like me can share with coaches like you the power of this double coaching. In addition to feedback, what you're doing, that you have companies that are listed up here. They believe in what we're doing. And then finally, the National Advisory Board. You can see Phil Jackson is our national spokesperson. Brandy Chastain, an Olympic soccer player, fantastic. Herm Edwards, great NFL coach. These people coached and played at the very highest level, and they believe in what PCA stands for. So getting into that, why we're here talking about positive coaching, I'm going to ask you, when I say positive coach, what are some words, what are some things that you guys think of when you hear, oh, he or she's a positive coach? Does anybody else want to share maybe some thoughts that they have on that? Did you raise your hand?
I think duckies and bunnies.
Duckies and bunnies. Explain more, please.
That seems like fluff.
Fluff, okay. Okay. What do other people think? When you hear positive coaching, do you think fluff?
Well, when I think of a positive coach, I think of someone who doesn't yell and scream all the time.
Okay.
That's good.
Good. Yep. Who doesn't yell and scream all the time? Anybody?
They just like to be there.
Just like to be there.
It just seems that they like to be coached.
Right.
If they're positive.
Yeah. Good.
Somebody who cares about me getting better as a master and as a person.
Right. Perfect. I'd say every answer is a great answer and a component of what a positive coach is. At Positive Coaching Alliance, we define a positive coach as someone who is striving to win on the scoreboard, who is striving to win, and who is also trying to teach life lessons to their athletes. So there's 2 components of that. And we know, as coaches, all of us here, we know we can't do it alone. This slide illustrates the different parts of a youth sports culture. So the development zone slide will show you, we are the double goal coaches, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But there are other people that affect our athletes and affect what we do every day. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have parents on the sidelines who are just saying, hey, great play, great effort, nice save? things like that. Is that kind of what you guys always hear on the sidelines from your parents? Or do you hear, is there anything else that you guys hear your parents saying to the athletes that you're coaching?
I train my parents, so that's what they say.
Okay, you train your parents. Anybody have any, what do a lot of parents do on the sidelines?
Run, shoot, pass, come on, get back. No, yes! What are you looking at? Oh my gosh!
Right? So that's absolutely right. And you know what, I'll be honest, I'm a parent as well, and I have been one of those parents on the sidelines who have said things that now I know is not helping my son and daughter get better. So in PCA, we call that a second goal parent. A second goal parent lets us, the coaches, coach, worry about the score, and worry about teaching our players the rules of the game and how to play the game. And they help their son and daughter absorb the life lessons that youth sports can bring. We have the sports organization. For me, that's Stillwater Area Lacrosse Association. And what Stillwater Area Lacrosse Association does is it establishes the culture. That's simply defined as how we do things here. And when you have an established culture as an organization, it is so much easier for the coaches, for the parents, and for the athletes to get on board and to move forward with what their own individual tasks are. And then finally, the triple impact competitor. That's the athletes that we coach. We, as double goal coaches, within that defined culture, want to make sure that we help our athletes better themselves, better the game, and help make their teammates better. It's pretty exciting stuff. So how do you do it, though? You know, you sit here and we can talk about it, and I'll be honest, that sometimes in the heat of the moment, that's not always easy to do. So PCA has 3 principles. And the untrained mastery I'll dig into more today. That's the first one. And that really is defining what is winning. What is winning about? Filling the emotional tank, keeping your athletes engaged and learning, and then finally honoring the game, which is really just I would like to say like an amped up version of sportsmanship. Take sportsmanship to a new level. So these next 2 video clips I'll play through. I'm actually going to play them through one after the other, and then we're going to talk about the differences between the 2 coaches shown. Both are from the movie We Are Marshall. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. The first coach is the coach that coached the team prior to the tragic plane crash. This is based on a true story. The second coach, portrayed by Matthew McConaughey, he is portraying Coach Jack Langle, is the coach that has to rebuild the team from scratch after that, with all new players. So I'll let these video clips play through, and then we'll talk about them. Okay, for purpose of time, we've played the video clips. So you see there's two very different styles. I think anyone, even people who don't coach, can see that there's 2 different styles. Can anyone here help me or share with the group what you think the biggest difference is, in your own words, of these 2 different styles of coaches? And and sometimes, you know, I also need to see and hear things a few times before I'm able to kind of absorb it all. But I've seen these video clips many times. You know, in the first one, there are some words that the coach uses, and really the way that video clip ends is pretty powerful. Did anybody hear what his last words were to his team at the end of a game where they lost? What were the last words that he said?
Winning is everything.
Winning is everything. Okay, that sums up his philosophy right there. He might be a great guy. In fact, he said some really good things that he's proud of them, and they gave good effort. But the message that they're going to remember is winning is everything. Versus the second clip. What were some of the things you heard that coach say? What were some of the things that came out of that video clip? Okay, no, we didn't play it. So
he's on the scoreboard, but we cannot be defeated.
Right. If you dig, if you play with heart, if you give full effort from the beginning to the end, even if you're behind the scoreboard, you cannot be defeated. What a powerful message. And as coaches, we may not have to build a team from scratch after a tragedy, but we may have a team that doesn't win a game all season. How do you motivate your team? How do you do that? So the 2 differences when we talk about PCA is between a scoreboard emphasis, which would be the first coach, winning is everything, versus a mastery focus, which is working on the things that you can control. Asking one more question. Who here has the privilege of having a sports psychologist on your coaching staff? You know, when I don't know, I think, yeah, do you have a sports psychologist? Do you do have a couple of lucky people?
Well, I did see it Holy Select last night, so I am a sports psychologist.
Very funny. My husband's used that line too. So, right, most of us who coach youth sports we don't have a sports psychologist on our staff. And what the nice thing about the Positive Coaching Alliance and this double goal coaching is that it takes 25 years of proven sports psychology research and it gives it to us so that we can apply it to our teams. And one of the biggest takeaways there is that it has been proven. Sports psychologist research has proven that coaches who focus with a mastery, who coach with a mastery focus versus a scoreboard focus actually win more games than those who focus with the scoreboard focus. Does that, how does that sit with you? Do you believe that to be true? Would you guys see that? Okay, I see some people nodding and yep, agreeing with that. And what, we'll dig into more of the details of that. What are some things that you think would be the reason why that would be?
Well, because you can control the attitude, the effort, the technique to an extent. Once you learn, you can't control the outcome.
Right, absolutely. That's the biggest thing. You can control the effort. You can control your attitude. You can control what you put into it. You can't control, there's so many things you can't control, not just the outcome, but what about who is officiating your game? What kind of weather conditions you have? Well, who your opponent is. You can't control that and what their skill level is. So that focusing on the mastery of the game, of the sport that you're coaching, actually produces more wins. So if we talk about the elm tree of mastery is the toolkit that we as coaches can use. And I've used it, as I said at the beginning, I used it in my youth lacrosse team, and I continue to each year. And what I have found to be helpful is to make sure that I talk about it with the parents and explain the different principles, and then I reiterate it with the athletes. So we'll dig into those a little bit more. The elm tree, so we have ELM. The E is for effort. Joel gave a great example already. That we all can control. What effort we put forth. Learning. Again, we want to work towards learning. The video clip that showed Jack Michael, talking to his team before a game, he was building a team from scratch. He said in the video clip, the team that we're playing is bigger, faster, stronger, and on paper they're just better. Okay? We as coaches have to remember that. If we're working on learning, then our athletes cannot be defeated. So we're talking about learning. And then mistakes. In a scoreboard definition, you can see where mistakes are not okay. In a mastery climate, they are. And this was, I think, the biggest thing for me when I first attended a workshop. I had always been a coach that thought, well, the team that makes the fewest mistakes is going to be the better team. But I've definitely learned a lot more about the value of mistakes. And I'd like to ask you coaches, what are your thoughts when you hear someone say mistakes are okay? What are some things that you think of? Do you agree with that statement?
I mean, I want to agree with it, but I mean, in reality, I think it's hard for us to say mistakes are okay. But I know that the research has shown that it is okay, and kids will learn if they do know that it's safe to make mistakes. Right. I just know from watching basketball how players play when they're constantly looking at the coach to see if after they made a mistake if they're going to get yanked out. And when a coach just lets them play, I feel like that they move on quicker rather than always being so anxious about getting pulled.
Right.
But I would say too, it kind of annoys me when I feel like excuses are being made. So I feel like I've seen coaches who will be like, oh, don't worry about it, no problem, and you're sort of feeling like it was this opportunity for them to actually give feedback, but they just sort of say, oh, move on, and sometimes I sort of feel like they are missing their teaching moment.
Right, and that's a great point that you brought up, and I went through that myself as a coach. When our athletes are going to make mistakes, and for me, I encourage the girls that I coach in lacrosse, I want them to use both hands. I say to them, I don't care if you drop the ball when you switch hands. I want to see you switching hands because eventually you're going to get it. So you make, even if you switch hands and you pass the ball to the wrong team, I'm not going to be upset with you. And yet, there are those teachable moments as coaches that we need to take advantage of. Something that I learned through the PCA is taking mistakes. Sometimes you have to put it into a parking garage or a parking spot. Okay, there's a time and a place when you want to address that mistake. So every athlete knows when he or she made a mistake, and they look either to their parents or to their coach to see, well, hey, how's my coach going to react? It's important that coaches, that we follow what we have said from the beginning of the season, that mistakes are okay. And we do that with our body language, and yet we need to come back and revisit maybe why the mistake happened and what we as coaches can do perhaps it was something that we just didn't teach effectively or didn't give the kids enough opportunity to practice. So coming back to it when it's not in the heat of the moment, sometimes the best way of teaching it. So you don't want to forget about it. You want to make note of it. Hey, this mistake happened. What can I do to make this team better by addressing the mistake, but not in a way that's going to either call out that athlete, embarrass that athlete, or make them feel bad so that they maybe can't go on to the next play. So in talking about this, and I guess one thing that I loved about the workshops I attended was learning from other coaches. And some of the terminology that I use when talking to my girls is, I'm very competitive. I want to win. I'm definitely, I 100% say I'm a double goal coach who focuses on winning and teaching the life lessons. And so what I say to my girls is, I will never be angry at you. I'll never yell at you for making a mistake, but I will be upset if you don't give your best effort. And there are things that you can control. In lacrosse, attackers, everyone wants to play attack because they want to score goals. And I have found over the years that I have girls that want to play attack, and when the ball comes to them, they're psyched to go to goal. When they lose the ball, then they just kind of stand there thinking, well, now it's not attack anymore. Now it's midfield and defense that are doing the work. So something that I've used with my girls that has worked a lot is I've said to them, you are playing attack. You may not be able to catch the ball. You may not be able to shoot and score. Maybe that you're still learning those skills, but everybody can run. So what I'm asking you to do is that you will run from the attack portion of the zone all the way to the far restraining line. That is your job. So when you have the ball, you're going to drive to the net every time. When you don't have the ball, when the other team has the ball, you and your attacking teammates are sprinting back to try to get the ball back. Try to keep it within their control. And then I say that, did you do it? Did you do your best effort? If you gave your best effort, then I, as your coach, am very happy and proud of you. And getting back to the research has shown that in this mastery climate, when you allow your athletes to have the control, anxiety actually goes down and the self-confidence for the athletes goes up. And it shows here that, and this is proven to be true too, athletes who feel that less anxiety and more self-confidence are more likely to stick with it and to work harder and play longer. And just cycling back to the beginning, something that I'm very passionate about is keeping kids playing youth sports. So if we can coach double goal coaches in a mastery climate where the anxiety goes down and self-confidence goes up, we will keep more kids playing sports long past the age of 13.
Great job.
Is that okay to finish there?
Yep.
Scenario.
Very well.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you again.
I like the whole focus, as a coach, former coach. I struggle with the whole mistake aspect too, because there are times, I think, when mistakes aren't acceptable. Certain kinds of mistakes, if that makes sense. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go ballistic. But I know if I were to give that workshop, I think I'd be open and honest about that, because I think most of the coaches in the audience are thinking, wait a minute, okay, it's nice to be polypositive all the time. It's not that you have to be on the screen, but there are times, probably more to do with the sportsmanship, misconduct, more to do with how you respond to reacting to a fall, throwing the bat if you strike out, or something. That, unless you call that a mistake, that might be more of an act versus a mistake. But that to me is not acceptable. And I don't put my arm around my kid and say, that's okay, you throw the bat.
Right.
There's an aspect there. So I think, the audience that you're speaking to, you need to make it real for them. In my opinion.
Okay.
Which I think you have. I think that you've been there, you've done that.
Yeah.
And I think, you use your experience to share with what you're trying to do with the people. Obviously, you're teaching.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Lucy, do you want to say anything before you go and walk out?
Well, let me just, you're going to rock it. Yeah. You got what it takes.
Thank you.
Interactive, you've got spirit, you've got the superintendent of material up. I like picking up index card, that's something small, not a big sheet. That's like, it's your touch points. And that's a lot of what you did. I thought at the very end, you could have, the last portion, you could have had us interacting a little more.
Okay.
So don't let that drop.
Yeah. Thanks, Lucy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lucy. Good to see you. Corey, what do you got?
Set me up. It was awesome. I love your passion, and I love the fact that you're authentic. You weren't out there just feeling like you had all the answers. You were authentic, kind of talking about the battles that you've gone through, that you've had, and it was just being how authentic you were, just kind of relating your own stories into this. And the one line that you said that I really did like, that I just was like, because I'm on the ground floor, I'm in Wayzata trying to bring these people, and I'm like when I see duckies and bunnies, these are the guys I'm dealing with. These guys are construction workers, this and that. Yeah. When they hear the word positive coaching lines, they're like, okay, why do I need to go there?
Right. Okay.
And when you said you had your reservations about going to it because you knew everything about the game, that's what these guys are thinking. I know everything. Why am I here right now? Then you said, hey, I went here. This is the reason I went here, because of a friend, because of this. And this is the reason these guys are here too. Well, so-and-so brought me here, and they're kind of coming in there half-heartedly, like, what do I need all these ducky and bunny for? This, I'm a good coach. And then you're like, hey, look, you know what? I had my reservations, but when I walked out there, I learned a couple things, and I implemented it right away. And so that kind of got me like,
okay,
right away. It's like, well, maybe I might learn something because she had a reservation. Now she's presenting, she's thinking the same thing that I'm thinking right now. And I love that component. And bringing in your own personal stories and talking about how you're a coach, you have your own kids, you have all this stuff, and how it all relates and all ties together. The best marketing ploy is, I heard this when they talk about this tree cutting circle. So a tree cutting, he said, you know what, I've been around 50 years, blah, blah, blah. They kind of go on, but one thing he said that caught my attention, he goes, they changed their marketing campaign. And he goes, hey, do you have that tree that's hanging over your driveway? Can you imagine if that thing fell on your car, or even worse, fell on your kids and killed your kids? And I'm like, hey, I got that tree, versus the previous marketing campaign where it said, you know what, we've been in business for 50 years, trust us, this and that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm fine, I got no trees. What do I need this guy? But as soon as he said, hey, you have a tree, because I have a tree in my lake, because I got these big old trees with this thing hanging over my cars. What if that thing fell over your car? I'm like, great point, I'm calling.
He brings up a good point. I think Corey is like our target audience. I mean, a lot of these coaches come to this workshop with reservations. And I mean, I've been to enough of them where at the end I can see that they really have changed their tune. But to really acknowledge that, I wrote that down. I really liked that. I think it makes it more personal that you felt the same way, but hey, look where you are now. And I love that you said that you keep this book in your bag and that you use it every year. And I think that's what's most important, is that people take this and don't just throw it away, refer to it. It's got great tools for the whole season. And I really like that's what you said about that.
I'll be super quick, just to reiterate. I thought the integration of your personal stories was just seamless, and you did a really good job. And my only constructive criticism was a couple of times responding to us. Maybe you were already thinking ahead to the next one. So when Corey said the bunnies and fluff thing, I wanted to hear you respond directly to that, because that was the skeptical remark.
Okay.
Of well, it's just fluff, it doesn't mean anything. And you went on and heard from the rest of us, but I wanted you to come back to him and be like, well, let's talk about that.
Right. Okay.
I get it. I'm skeptical too, but here's what this is really about.
Okay.
Can I jump in with that? Maureen, do you mind if I add something to that?
No.
Yeah. So I noticed also that you asked a question. The first answer you got was bunnies and fluff, and then you got several answers of what PCA does think positive coaching is.
You froze.
I froze? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're not frozen for me. You froze for them.
I deal with this.
There you go. You're back.
Okay, now you can hear me again?
Yeah.
Start over.
So you asked a question, and the first response you got was bunnies and fluff, and that was followed by several responses of what PCA actually does think positive coaching is. When you summarized it and moved on, Maureen, this is a tough question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you remember what you said?
I think I said all of the answers.
You said all good answers, all good answers. And so what I heard you say is, oh, so positive coaching is bunnies and fluff.
Right.
So what I'd like, and which I know is not what you meant.
Right.
And what I think Keren is getting at is how do you transition without conveying that. And I'm going to give you one possible way to do that, which is, so thanks for sharing with me what you think of when you hear the term positive coaching.
Right.
At PCA, we think positive coaching is striving to win and teaching life lessons. It is not about fluff, and it's not soft and easy. It's a challenging way to coach, and it's about high standards and sticking to those standards no matter what. Okay, now, so Maureen, I figured that out after about 10 years as a trainer. Thank you for sharing that with me. Okay, I'll turn it back over to you all.
No, I think
that's a great answer.
I think we're good, so you guys can keep going.
Ruben, did you want to continue, or do you want me to jump in?
I'll just two more things. Like Keren, this is my third time seeing Maureen present, and it's been a pleasure, Maureen, seeing you just take it to another level each time. I think you're on your way. And again, I think you've gotten a lot of great feedback already. I really enjoyed it again. I'm going to ask you another question, Maureen. After the videos, you asked us to compare the two coaching styles. Right. When you asked the question, what happened?
No one had an answer.
No one had an answer. And what did you do?
I jumped in.
How long did you give us to answer your question?
Like 10 seconds.
No, you did not give us 10 seconds. How long did you give us, gang?
2 seconds.
You gave us maybe 2 seconds, Maureen. It felt like 10 seconds. It may have felt like an hour to you. It was 2 seconds. Be patient. Don't give up on us.
Okay.
I wanted to answer. Keren would have bailed you out. I know Keren would have bailed you out if you gave her more time, So don't let us off the hook. Don't give up so easily when you ask a question. And what are we naturally going to do when you ask a question? We're going to think for a moment. We're going to think. We need 2-4 seconds to think. And if you want, say, who has a thought on that? If you want to break the silence, who has a thought on that? As opposed to letting us off the hook.
Thank you. That's great.
Sure, Maureen.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a couple comments just to piggyback on what Ruben just said. Someone said to me, the best questions are the ones that are thought-provoking, so allow our thoughts to provoke. Okay. That made me think about that, because if you really are asking a deep question, the silence is not uncomfortable if you realize everybody's truly thinking about it. So sometimes if I have a really deep question, I would say, okay, take about 10 seconds to think. No hands raised yet. And I just sit there for 10 seconds, let them think, and say, okay, now I'd love to hear what somebody thought about. That kind of gets you off the hook by like this panic, like crickets in the background. I asked a question, nobody's answering me. It tells them that you want them to really think long and hard about it. Maureen, I agree with Ruben. I mean, as I said, this is my third time. I love what you did. I think you are so well prepared. Your flow was strong. You just made it conversational, but I felt like I was being coached by you. You've been in the trenches. You've been in the thick of it. Your examples, I agree with Keren, they were seamless. You added your examples in at the appropriate time, not too much of a story, but just enough to make it real for us. My hesitation for you, and I did this as well, is make sure if you're in a room of multiple sports that you have examples from other sports as well. I think your lacrosse examples are fantastic, and I loved them because I'm a lacrosse coach. But just make sure that you have a couple more in your pocket to bring up, oh, I have a friend that plays baseball. Our coach is baseball. This is something that he does, or something from a soccer background. And I had been critiqued by that in my workshops, like, please use different sport examples.
Okay.
So, the other thing I love, I wrote down a couple strong statements that you said that I call them sticky statements. Like, they will stick with me. When you said, PCA puts a common language to turn the trend of sports around, and the idea is to keep kids in sports. You went back to that theme a couple times, and I love that. I think that's just a common thread that went throughout your workshop. You even said at the very end, this is how we're going to keep kids in sports. And I think that's great when you have something common that goes throughout the whole workshop. The other thing, after the Steve Young video, I've heard people go on for 10 minutes and talk about Steve Young, and all you needed to say was, Steve Young gives credit to his first coaches. That's us. I mean, that was powerful right there. Like, holy cow, you're right. This is us right here and now. So I thought you handled that very well too. I love your story about your pay it forward, the coach that said, pay it forward for me. Again, a sticky statement, very, very powerful. When you talked about, you did a nice job of explaining the development zone. That's a big slide. There's a lot of information on it. And I thought your pace on that was really great. You talked about the two components, are winning and teaching life lessons, and then you went on to the next, okay, now we're going to talk about the Elm Tree of Mastery. Right in there, when you talk about those two components, throw in the term double goal coach. Just as kind of a teaser. I mean, you're going to talk about it in a couple minutes, but when you talk about two components, there's two goals right there as coaches. Just to kind of get the terminology, kind of wet their whistle with the terminology. I didn't notice that you said that.
Okay.
Again, love the way you're humble. You know, I was that parent, now I'm not. This is something I used to do, now I don't. I think that's really great. Anytime you can do that, again, as whoever's sitting over here said, it's a great way to bring the audience in and realize that you've made mistakes and you've learned. You were that coach sitting in those seats, and now you've learned from it. What else was I going to say? Oh, only other thing, when you talked about your switching hands example, you know, love that example too. I thought that was a great way to talk about how to embrace mistakes. Again, maybe mention, because you said, yeah, I want them to make mistakes. I will never be upset with you if you switch hands. You know, mention the quick term. Yeah, we have something called a mistake ritual I'm going to tell you about in a few minutes. You know, just kind of as a sort of an appetizer, wet their whistle for what's coming. Just throw a little bit of terminology in there because people are like, oh, ritual, mistake ritual. That's something, that's a tool I can use. And then when you bring it up later on, you know, 35 seconds later, whenever the slide comes up, you've already kind of explained the story. You don't have to re-explain another story on how to use it.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I have. I'm really excited. I thought it was great.
Thanks.
This is better semantics kind of thing. When we talk about motivating teams, we can't truly motivate. Like as an external force, we can't motivate. So you know, you have that team that's really struggling. You know, that is 0-30 versus how to. And this is my frustration with dealing with coaches. Is they talk about it. You know, they put so much on them. They have to motivate their team. They need to do this, need to do that. Versus no, your job isn't to motivate the team. They're going to motivate themselves. Their kids, we're human beings. What can we take? How do we, out of that 0-30 team, how do we move them forward where they can take something and take it and move it forward and learn a life lesson through this, or not a life lesson, but take some sort of skill that they learned from me and be able to carry forward so when they're on those winning teams.
It is a life lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you're a kid, you don't think this is a life lesson.
Yeah, but the other thing with it, like you said, the duckies and bunnies, everybody talks about the life lessons of sports, and there's all this thought around as coaches, like life lesson. Let them play. Let the sport, let the game teach them.
Which it is. But that, I mean, it's us adults saying these are life lessons. I know. Because when you're an adult, that's when you're like, God, I learned these life lessons.
Right.
Ruben and Kelly, thank you.
Deborah, yes? I want to thank you very much for Kelly and I are so, and I am sure Keren and Maureen are so appreciative of this opportunity you created for all of us. I know it's not easy to round up a bunch of busy people, and you know, so thank you so much for setting this up. You have Joel there. Do you have any other certified trainers there besides Joel?
Yeah. Paul Larson is here, but I actually just put Paul in the other room. Blake Sloan is here doing his presentation, so he's presenting to Paul and Andrew.
Great. Well, I just want to thank those certified trainers for participating also, and of course the board members and other guests that you have there to just thank you so much. This is such a valuable opportunity. Appreciate it.
So tomorrow we'll just have Phil.
Tomorrow at 9 a.m.?
Yeah, your time. 9 my time, 10 your time.
10 my time, right. Okay. That sounds good. And Maureen, I also want to say before I go, I have a new question that I'm going to ask in my workshops, and that is, who has a sports psychologist on their staff? So I'm officially stealing that from you because I think that was fantastic.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
I'll see you tomorrow, Deborah. I'll send out another link for you for Phil tomorrow.
Thank you.
Like I said, I'm a sports psychologist.